Hey, today was $2 trillion plus. That was the price tag on the big relief package, the bailout package, the rescue package, whatever you want to call it, for dealing with what we're handling right now as far as coronavirus goes. One of the big storylines that came out of this was the idea that they were going to pass with unanimous consent the biggest spending bill in American history. Seems like a kind of strange thing. We usually have these big debates over this stuff, and it's a big deal. All the votes get used in ads against each other afterwards. And then this one was just going to kind of sail through with no one saying anything. Seemed a little weird. It seemed a little weird to Congressman Thomas Massie, who decided he was going to step up and say, wait a minute, we're not going to do it this way. We need to have a vote on this and get people on record. Thomas Massie from Kentucky joins me right now. Congressman, thanks for coming on the program.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been a wild ride these past few days trying to get Congress to do its job.
It really has. I want to get into the sort of pragmatic parts of this here in a second, but correct me if I'm wrong. On sort of principle here, I know of absolutely no one who's saying your point is wrong. You are saying in the Constitution it says there needs to be a quorum for this to happen, and there wasn't a quorum. So can you explain why you had this objection, first of all, with the Constitution, and explain how they're getting around it?
Sure. So 2 or 3 days ago, they were voting on this bill in the Senate, and then they said, we'll just UC it in the House. Now, that's shorthand for unanimous consent. And the problem was they were telling people, don't even bother coming to Congress. Stay home. We got this. In other words, they were going to ask for unanimous consent in a chamber that had nobody in it. So who would be there to object?
Right.
Nobody.
Which is, of course, a very convenient part of the plan.
Yeah. And then they're saying, well, the problem is it's not safe for Congress to come to D.C. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, wait, we've got truckers bringing produce to the grocery stores. They're deemed essential. You've got grocery store baggers who are working, and here Congress is making $174,000 a year with the health care that Obamacare will allow, and they're saying, no, we think we'll just call this one in. And I said, no, I got out my Constitution, which I practically have memorized, but I pointed out that you have to have a quorum, and a quorum in the definition in the Constitution, a quorum of Congress is at least half. So at least half of in order to pass a bill, okay? So at least half of Congress should be here when we are legislating. I know that's a lot to ask, to get half of Congress to come to work. But so that's what I demanded. And the world came down on me like I was crazy for saying we should follow the Constitution. And then they started blaming me. They started to say, well, you're going to delay this. But they had 2 dead days in the calendar anyway. They said, the problem, Mr. Massie, is if you ask for the recorded vote on Friday, that'll put it off until Saturday because it'll take us 24 hours to get people here. Meanwhile, it's Thursday, and I'm saying, no, I'm telling you I'm going to ask for a vote, get people here, tell them to come so they can be here Friday. And that's exactly what happened today. We got a quorum in the House. Now, I was able to get Congress to come to work, but I wasn't able to get them to work, actually, because after we had a quorum, I showed that the emperor had no clothes because I asked for a recorded vote. Now, you can't say that that's stopping the bill from happening because once you have a quorum, you take a recorded vote. As long as the majority of the members who are here vote for the bill, then it passes, and they had a clear majority. I did some wrangling with Kevin McCarthy and Nancy Pelosi, who were locked arm in arm today, passing this bill and doing everything they could to keep members from having to go on record. So today, even though in the Senate they voted 96 to nothing, in the House there was no vote. So, I was able to get people. I was able to force them using the Constitution to come to work. But I wasn't able to force them to work, i.e. to vote.
So, Congressman, I saw the picture of this as it happened because you brought this up and they shot it down. They said there was a quorum there. First of all, was there? It didn't appear to me that there was over 200 people in the room.
Well, I would have liked to have them count the members, the problem is, I asked the parliamentarian, and he said, "No, I'm satisfied that just sort of the visual one over here from the." And I have immense respect for the parliamentarian. Mm-hmm. And so what they did is they did put members up in the gallery where the tourists usually sit. They didn't allow the tourists, and that way they were able to space this all out. So I will, even though it looked kind of sketchy on TV, and I thought about demanding that they actually count them instead of approximating. I do believe they had a quorum here today.
So they did actually. That's interesting. They could have actually taken the vote and decided not to do it anyway. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we understand that this was going to pass by overwhelming margins. I mean, you mentioned the Senate 96-0. What was the fear in just taking a vote on it?
Oh, well, the leadership on both sides of the aisle, as well as members, told me there were two fears that they had if they put people on record. The first fear was, let's say there were 250 of 435 here today. Mm-hmm. If you actually took a recorded vote, that would show you who stayed home today. Mm. And they didn't want to show who the members were who didn't come here. Now, they said that's because some of them were sick or dealing with family, and they didn't want to expose them to that. But I can guarantee you there were some of them who just didn't want to come, probably quite a few. They didn't want to expose those people. Now, and you can have valid reasons for not coming to Congress. I haven't made every vote. I've probably made 99+% of the votes. But you explain that to your voters. So they said, we got to protect the ones who aren't here today from anybody finding out that they weren't here. And then, but the real reason, I believe, is the people who were here, the say 250 or 300 who were here, didn't want to go on record voting for what is probably the biggest single mistake in world history. I mean, this is the biggest single spending bill in the history of planet Earth.
Yes.
And
is it the biggest mistake, though? I mean, that's quite a statement. There's been some big screw-ups.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a mistake. Here's why I think it's a mistake. Now, that some of my conservative friends decided that they should vote yes, even though it was a voice vote. You could yell yay or nay. Some of my conservative friends had some pretty good logic for why they should vote yes. They said, look, the government has deprived all these people of livelihoods by shutting down things, even in places where the virus isn't prevalent yet. They just shut everything down. Mm-hmm. And so the government needs to make them whole because this was a taking by the government.
Yes.
Kind of like eminent domain, if you will.
Yeah.
So I said, well, here's the problem with that logic. It's the governors who are taking, and it's the federal government who is giving back. And if we keep giving, we are encouraging governors to take the most draconian steps possible. And what's going to happen is they're going to shut the government. They're going to shut the economy down. Right. And pretty soon, instead of just the shortage of ventilators, we're going to have a shortage of food, a shortage of insulin, a shortage of everything that's manufactured or grown in this country if you shut everything down for 3 months.
Congressman, we have about 1 minute left. The argument against what you did today was, look, this was going to pass anyway. You stuck your neck out there, and everyone agrees you were right on the Constitution. But, I mean, look, this is too important. We're going to have to make the Constitution wait. And now we have a representative, and we're fans of yours, who is getting, tweeted about by Donald Trump. You're probably going to get primaried now. You're going to have all this stuff come down on you. And, we need people like you in Congress. And you're risking all of that for something that's not going to get you anywhere.
And I've heard people say this is not the hill to die on or that I was grandstanding. This is the Constitution. Here's the problem, Stu. If I didn't stand up here on Pelosi coronavirus 3.0 legislation, what she would do, she's already got 4.0 written. They would just have us all stay home. But now that they know that there's this guy named Thomas Massie who is going to make them come to work if they try to pass a bill, they're going to be very reluctant to do the 4.0 with even more pork in it than this one had in it. So this wasn't me, pouring gasoline on myself and set myself on fire. This hurt me politically. I understand that. But I did it because I have a long-term strategy, which is to discourage them from doing this in the future. Otherwise, Congress becomes irrelevant, and the Speaker gets to write all the bills and passes them without us here.
Congressman, we're going to have to leave it there. I mean, if you're going to set yourself on fire, the Constitution's not a bad thing to do it for. So we appreciate you standing up for the Constitution, truly. And please, you gotta, I know you have to do this, and we appreciate you holding them accountable.
Thank you very much, too. And ultimately, remember, this didn't even delay the bill, an hour today.